Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about the perfect palette according to you guys, my followers, my subscribers. Well, I kind of did these polls on Instagram because I do not have the YouTube polls or whatever those are called. I don't even have the community tab, so I'm unable to do it with my actual YouTube subscribers, but I did do it on Instagram and I know many of you follow me on there as well. If you don't, you definitely should. Always link down below. Very active on there. I post a lot of cool stuff, so you definitely should follow me there. But full disclosure, I kind of got this idea from Makeup Just for Fun, I believe is her name. I'll link her Instagram handle and her channel down below. But I saw that she was doing these polls on her story. She did them a couple weeks ago. I did mine a couple weeks ago too, honestly. And I wasn't sure what she was doing with them, but her polls kind of sparked this idea. So just kind of full disclosure with that. So today I want to talk about the perfect palette. So I did quite a few polls on Instagram kind of asking you guys questions about what would your perfect palette be like, what colors, what packaging, blah blah blah. So I want to go through kind of the results of those polls today, and then some palettes that I pulled from my collection that I feel like really hit these marks, or the most popular marks, the majority vote marks, and kind of discuss whether these were really popular, whether these weren't popular, whether I heard a lot of buzz about them. I just thought that would be kind of interesting to see as well. So without further ado, let's get into what the perfect palette is according to my Instagram followers. Alright, so I scooched over a little bit because I'm going to insert the polls right here so you guys can kind of see the results yourself. So I wanted to kind of organize these in a way that would kind of make sense. So first, I really want to talk about the packaging. So I gave two different packaging options. I gave a cardboard option, like this Beach Cosmetics Festival Weekend palette, or kind of tin packaging, like the Too Faced Chocolate Bar, Peachy, all these kind of palettes. And cardboard packaging won out by a lot. 79% of you voted for more cardboard packaging. I don't know, I kind of thought you guys would go for tin, because I feel like while cardboard is still sturdy, I feel like tin might protect your shadows a little bit better if you were traveling with these items, or just in everyday life if you drop it or something. But you guys went for cardboard, so I was pretty surprised on that one. And then this next one really shocked me. So next I asked you guys if a mirror was included in your perfect palette, or a mirror really didn't matter to you. And this one was split right down the middle. When I checked the polls, it was 50-50. Honestly, I feel like palettes not having a mirror is such a huge gripe. Sometimes when palettes come out, people are like, oh, it doesn't have a mirror, I really wish it had a mirror. I feel like that's always a point in a review, whether or not it has a mirror. And I feel like for a lot of people it is a priority, but I was absolutely shocked to see that 50% of you said no mirror, doesn't matter, I'm not going to use it anyway. So that one was super surprising to me. This next one, I was pretty certain that I knew the answer to it already, but I wanted to ask you guys just in case you surprised me. And that one was, does your perfect palette come with a brush, or does it not come with a brush? 93% of you said pass on the brush, and I don't really blame you. I don't really find myself reaching into palettes to grab that specific brush, or when I reach into those palettes, I don't use that brush. I don't know why, because some of those brushes are really nice. I'm sure I'd get a lot of great use out of them, especially the ones in the ABH palettes, but I never used those brushes, and I found it really interesting that you guys didn't either. So now I have two questions that pertain to really the functionality of the palettes. And the first one is, does your palette have to be travel friendly? I feel like this is a really big point for me, and I was kind of shocked. Well, I mean, it was 50-50 almost, that 51% of you said that it really doesn't matter if your palette is travel friendly. Now, I agree that not every single palette in my collection needs to be travel friendly, but I'm a makeup junkie and I love traveling with my makeup. I love packing my makeup. I feel like half the fun of going on a trip is packing my makeup and packing what I'm going to use. So I feel like travel friendliness is kind of like something that's swirling around in my mind when I'm picking out a palette, but it's really not the be-all end-all. So I kind of see why 49% of you said no, it doesn't really matter, but at the same time it is something that does matter to a degree to me. So now I wanted to get into the actual shades of the palette. So I first asked you guys, what are your 3 must-have shades in a palette? So you guys had a ton of different answers, but I picked the top 5 or 6 shades that I saw over and over again. But I did notice something really interesting when I was reading through your responses, because I did this one as like kind of a question. A lot of you just mentioned tones. You didn't exactly mention shades, like a light shimmer, a deep matte, kind of a medium tone transition shade. You really didn't mention exact shades, which was kind of what I'm looking for. But I found that to be very interesting, because I feel like the makeup world is really changing we've been in such a neutral rut for so long, and I feel like color is kind of coming back, and these tones can be adjusted for each color family. A deep matte for like a purple palette could mean like a really deep plum. A light shimmer could mean a very beautiful lilac, or a duochrome like blue lilac, stuff like that. So I thought that was very interesting. So the first one that was extremely popular, was almost the most popular, was a cream shade. So I took this to mean a cream matte shade that you use to set down your eyeshadow primer or to kind of buff out the edges of your eyeshadow. That one was extremely popular, as was Champagne. That was the second most mentioned eyeshadow, which I totally agree. Those are definitely eyeshadow staples in my own eyeshadow palettes and what would be constituted as a perfect palette for me. So the next two most popular shades also were not a very big surprise to me. One of them was a warm transition shade and the other one was a dark brown. I feel like dark browns are so essential to any look, and they're very versatile. They can be used all over the lid, they can be used in your outer corner, they can be used as liner. I just think they're a really great shadow to throw into any palette. And a warm transition shade, again, we're still kind of in that warm neutral mindset. I know those are still huge favorites of many people, including myself, and I think that's really not a huge surprise either. The next one that was also very popular was a white bright inner corner highlight. A lot of people said white, and that actually really surprised me because I don't usually pop white in my inner corner too often, and I don't think I see others do it very often, but maybe I'm just not being very perceptive of that. But I thought that was super interesting. And then also a mid-tone brown, which is also just kind of a, well, duh, no-brainer shade. When I did this kind of question, I thought that I would get kind of these core basic shades, but I was also really expecting some like pops of color to be more popular, or just like some different shades, something other than these neutral basics that we all use on an everyday basis. So I thought it was really interesting that I didn't really get a whole lot of those. So next I asked how many pans you would want in your palette, and I kind of put this under the shades one because it's how many shades of eyeshadow that you're given. And I give you the option of 5 to 16 or 17 to 35. 96% of you said 5 to 16 pans is your perfect eyeshadow palette size, and I could not agree more, you guys. Honestly, I'm kind of done with those big giant palettes, like those Morphe palettes. I love my Morphe Jekyll Hill palette, but other than that, I don't really reach for my Morphe palettes all that often. And I just feel like smaller palettes are where it's at. I've definitely seen myself gravitating towards those more recently, especially with all the new launches, those new ones that ColourPop has launched recently. I think they're stunning, and I'm just really attracted to those more concentrated color stories. Next, I gave you guys probably like a no-brainer question, and I asked if you wanted all neutrals in a palette or a mix of neutrals in color. So I feel like in today's makeup world, if you launch an all-neutral palette, it's labeled as boring. It's labeled as something that's already been done. And yes, it's already been done, but at the same time, I feel like brands need those staple neutral palettes for people who are not makeup junkies, who don't already have 20, 30, 40 palettes in their collection, and who are really just looking for something that's going to be very functional and very good for every day. But most of you voted for neutral and color, 84% of you actually, to be exact. And I could not agree more. I hardly ever buy just plain neutral palettes anymore. It's gotta have some color, it's gotta have something that's just a little bit different for me to really make that purchase. Next, I asked you guys if you wanted more shimmers or more mattes in your perfect palette, and 61% of you voted for more mattes. I was really surprised that so many of you voted for more shimmers. I guess that's just not really my style of makeup, but everyone does makeup differently, and I thought it was really fascinating to hear your different responses to these questions. So I would love more mattes in my palette because I feel like mattes are just a bit more versatile and they can help you create different eye looks. I feel like with shimmer shades, at least the way I prefer to do my makeup, I don't really put shimmer shades in the crease or the outer corner too often. I do buff them on the lower lash line, but that's about it, where I feel like I can put mattes all over the lid, through the crease, on the lower lash line, my brow bone, my inner corner as liner. I just feel like they're a lot more multifunctional for the way that I do my makeup. Now, I know I already asked for your must-have shades in a palette, but I thought this one was a little bit of a different question, and that is a matte skin tone shade a must? So obviously there are a plethora and a huge range of skin tones all across the world, all across people in general, not even just across the world. And I feel like the mainstream eyeshadow, what's the word I'm looking for, like technique, is to set down your primer with a skin tone shade. Now, for someone with a very deep skin tone, a cream shade, like I mentioned in my other like shades pull really would not work for them. They might want to use something a little bit deeper, or maybe they do want to use something a little bit more brighter to kind of make their base pop a little bit more. But 59% of you voted that a matte skin tone shade was an absolute must, but 41% of you voted that it was not necessary. So I thought that was also very interesting to see. I feel like a matte skin tone shade is a must for me, even though sometimes I don't completely set my base. With the way that my eyes are shaped, I have to set like at least my crease, or else I experience horrible creasing almost immediately. So that's definitely a must-have for me. The next question I asked was, would your perfect palette have a variety of finishes or just one finish? So like glitter, matte, satin, metallic, what other finishes are there? Why am I blanking? You guys know what I mean though. So 83% of you voted for a variety of finishes. I was honestly a little bit surprised that so many of you voted for the same finish throughout your entire palette, but that's just kind of telling that everyone has different makeup styles. Like I said, I really like to put mattes in my crease, my outer corner, put a beautiful shimmer on the lid, even blend it under the lower lash line, and call it a day. I'm very set in my makeup ways in that sense. But I think it's just very interesting to see that some people, their perfect palette would be either all shimmer or all matte or all metallic or all glitter. I just found that to be so interesting. So this next question I just threw in here because I thought it was kind of fun. Would your perfect palette be scented or unscented? So the majority of you, 85%, voted for unscented, but quite a few of you, well not quite a few of you voted for scented, and I also put on there like a little question that said, what would your palette be scented as? And I got chocolate, coconut, sweet vanilla, candy, fruit, and flowers. So honestly, I feel kind of neutral about having my eyeshadow scented or unscented. I thoroughly enjoy the smell of the Too Faced chocolate bar palette and also my peach palette, but I know for some people that's very overwhelming. I do have some hesitation putting scented products on my skin, but that's just really my eye area. I'm not really putting it on any other part of my face, so it shouldn't really cause too much irritation, but I don't know. I feel kind of so about that one. And the final question I asked you guys was, have you found your perfect palette? So 74% of you said no, and 26% of you said yes, and I was honestly shocked that anyone had said yes because, I don't know, my own makeup taste personally, they change so often, and just like the whole makeup world, where makeup trends are, it changes so often that kind of tweaks my perfect palette. So I don't know, I feel like my perfect palette definitely doesn't exist, but here are some examples of what you guys gave me. The Jekyll and Hyde Morphe palette, the Zoeva Cocoa Blend palette, the Be Perfect Carnival palette. If you guys don't know what that one looks like, it's super duper bright, it's absolutely stunning. But I feel like that's just very telling of that person's makeup style. ABH Sultry, ABH Soft Glam, both of those are stunning. They're very classic palettes. One is warm neutrals, one is more cool tone neutrals. Huda Beauty Nude, that one is stunning, and I knew that was going to pop on this list because it just has a beautiful color story. ABH Modern Renaissance, this one's a cult classic. I knew this one would pop up on this list too. NATASHA Denona Lila, Too Faced Chocolate Gold, The Rock Mega Pro 4, The Rock Mega Pro 3. So I feel like all of these palettes are very different in some aspects, and I just found it very interesting to hear what your perfect palettes were. So I dove into my collection a little bit, and I kind of use this criteria, or what the majority voted on, to find some perfect palettes in my collection. So the first one that I found was the BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette. This one has a variety of finishes. It has mattes, it has shimmers, it even has like a pressed like glitter shade that is so stunning. It has a beautiful mix of neutrals and colorful shades. It does have those kind of core neutral shades, a deep dark brown, a mid-tone brown, has a nice champagne shade over here. It doesn't have that cream shade or that skin tone shade to really set things down, but I thought this hit most of the marks. It's cardboard packaging, it does have a mirror inside, and I find this to be very travel friendly. I feel like this was a pretty talked about palette on social media for, I don't know, at least a couple months, which I feel like is pretty good in the fast-paced makeup world that we are currently living in. But I feel like if it were truly a perfect palette, and people would continue to talk about it today. The next palette I thought of was also from BH Cosmetics, and that is the Royal Affair palette. So this one's also cardboard packaging, has a great mirror, has a nice mix of neutrals and slightly colorful shades. This one is definitely way more colorful. This one has like more soft pops of color, like this beautiful lime shade, this gorgeous coral shade, this kind of nice burgundy shade, and these greens right here. I think they're stunning. They're not quite so bam in your face, colorful, but I would still count them as colorful shades. It has those awesome core mattes, beautiful matte cream, tons of matte mid-tone browns and transition shades, and that gorgeous matte dark brown. This palette, I feel like it just came and went and like hardly anyone talked about it. So I just found that interesting that it had all of those perfect palette characteristics, but it wasn't super talked about. Another one that I felt the same way about was the Lorac Shine Bright palette. This was their holiday release for 2018, and I love this palette, you guys. I did a full review on it on my channel. I'm not sure if this is even available anymore. I hope it is, because it's stunning. This has a wonderful, wonderful mix of neutrals and more colorful shades, and these are even more toned down colorful shades, which might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's still color, and I feel like this appeals to the neutral lovers and the colorful lovers. So as you can see, we have some really, really great neutral basics right here. We have 2 matte cream shades, we have warm browns, dark browns, cool browns. It's just, this is an awesome, awesome palette. This one really didn't get talked about a whole lot. I feel like Lorac has just kind of faded to the background. That's a huge shame, because their shadow formula is a dream to work with. And I would just love to see them come out with something really cool and really unexpected this year to kind of bring them back on top. The other palette that I immediately thought of, and I'm not surprised that I thought of this palette because it is so well curated, and that's the Emily Edit the Wants from Makeup Revolution. This palette is definitely travel friendly. It's a plastic outer shell, not a cardboard one, which is technically not the perfect palette, but I didn't give a plastic option. It has an amazing, amazing mirror. This palette has all the shades that you could ever want. I think this has too many pans technically, according to my poll, but I just feel like the shades in here nail every other qualification to be a perfect palette that I had to include it. This was a pretty talked about palette. It was quite controversial there for a little bit, but I think it's still a well talked about palette and a well loved palette on social media. So that's actually gonna wrap this video up for me today, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting. I know it's just kind of me rambling on, but I hope that you got something out of it. I hope it was interesting to watch. What's your perfect palette? Have you found it? If you found it, comment it down below. I definitely have not found my perfect palette, like I said, but I'm still on the lookout. I feel like my perfect palette will never be found because I'm always looking for the next best thing out there. And I love to shop my stash, but I also love to see what else is out in the makeup sea. So thank you all so much for watching again. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Sydney. I post beauty videos 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And that's gonna wrap this one up. So thank you so much for sticking around. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.